Hello, my name is Reverend Dr. May Elise Cannon. Today is Saturday. It's April 5th. Today is day 547. I'm still in Washington, D.C. We ended up taking off and heading across the Atlantic and then having to return back to D.C. because of some flight technicalities. And so I've been up all night and we're still headed to Cairo. So I'll be giving updates from the Middle East, I hope, tomorrow on Sunday. But for now, a brief update from Saturday, April 5th. It's been about 15 hours or 18 hours or so since I did the last update. And even in the midst of that, still had water, was safe, food, and all the things that are not readily available in Gaza. So updates from Gaza, the Israeli military has been conducting ground activity in Shujaiya in North Gaza. That was early Friday morning, according to a statement. We know that news last night indicated at least 30 people were killed in an Israeli airstrike on the Gaza Strip early Friday morning, including 19 members of one family were killed in Shujaiya in the north of the Gaza Strip. Israeli forces confirmed that Hassan Farhat, who is a senior Hamas commander in Lebanon, was killed in a targeted strike overnight into Friday. The attorney general told the high court in Israel that Netanyahu's decision to fire the Shin Bet chief, that's Ronan Bar. We've been talking about that whole Qatar Gate situation in Israel. So the attorney general told the high court that Netanyahu's decision to fire this Shin Bet chief was fundamentally flawed and was tainted by personal conflict. The Shin Bet chief, Ronan Bar, being dismissed, Netanyahu demanded that the agency rule that he could not testify in the corruption trial for security reasons. So that was Netanyahu's response. Turkey has said that they do not want a confrontation with Israel in Syria, according to the Turkish foreign minister. The former hostage Yarden Babas, you'll recall that his wife and two young boys were killed. They were the youngest hostages. Their bodies were returned in one of the earlier exchanges during the temporary ceasefire in past weeks. He said that he last saw the hostage David Cuneo in a Hamas tunnel over a year ago. And then in Gaza, you would have heard about the 15 ambulance and rescue workers who were killed. They were recently found in a mass grave. The New York Times obtained a video that showed Gazan ambulances with their emergency lights on when they were under intense gunfire. The IDF had claimed that vehicles had approached them with no lights, and that the vehicles were suspicious, that they had had no indications that these were emergency vehicles. And so there was a New York Times expose about that just came out. And, of course, international ambulances and hospitals and health, workers are supposed to be protected by international humanitarian law. In Israel, yesterday, I talked about one of the largest displacements in Gaza over the past year and a half. The news indicates that Israel is now in very serious talks with other countries about taking Palestinians in from Gaza. So I talked about the new group within the Israeli government that is been formed to help Gazans who willingly want to relocate out of the Gaza Strip. And so we know that the Israeli government is talking to foreign governments about which governments might be willing to receive displaced Gazans. So Israel is talking about implementing Trump's plans to relocate Gazan residents to other countries, adding that several nations are willing to accept Palestinians, but that they have demands, that they want something in return, not necessarily money, but something strategic. Last night, Friday night, there was a drone that approached Israeli territory from the east. The Israeli Air Force intercepted it. I think that was midnight local time in Israel. That was from the east. Sirens sounded according to protocol. I empathize very much with the movement in Israel that's calling for the release of hostages. Israeli news is reporting that there is broad consensus about the need to return the hostages, but that it is not broken through to the government, to the Israeli government. And that's a sentiment that's felt in terms of, the U.S. And U.S. protests, with the Trump administration, that public opinion calling for an end to the escalation of war. Many Israelis are opposed to the escalations of war in the Gaza Strip, similar to the public opinion in the U.S. And it seems to have not reached the Israeli government nor the Trump administration here in the U.S. context. Israeli officials said that 36 hostages are dead, despite confirmation of only 35 deaths so far. Until now, Israel had confirmed the deaths of 35 of the 59 hostages that are still held in captivity, but the official did not specify the identity of the additional hostage. That's not yet been released. But an additional hostage is now presumed dead. Netanyahu is set to come to Washington, D.C. and to meet with President Trump at the White House on Monday. That was first released by Axios. It's now being reported broadly in Israeli news and U.S. news sources. Yesterday, President Donald Trump, this is broader Middle East news, he shared footage of an American airstrike on Houthi targets in Yemen on his Truth Social account. So this was Friday around 6 p.m., 5:40 p.m. He said, "They will never sink our ships again." And he shared footage of a U.S. strike on Houthis. He said, "These Houthis have gathered for instructions on an attack. Oops, there will be no attack by these Houthis." That was a direct quote from Trump's Truth Social at Trump Daily Posts. It's also important to note that most or more Americans are seeing permanent Gaza ceasefire as a priority. When asked about the level of importance of negotiating permanent ceasefire between Israel and Hamas, 59% in a poll said it's extremely important or very important that the U.S. do so, marking a 9-point difference from February 2024. So in February 2024, 48% of people said negotiations for a permanent ceasefire was important, and now 59% are saying so. So more than a 10% increase since February of last year. In the U.S., pro-Palestinian protesters interrupted Microsoft's 50th anniversary event. Reports are indicating that AI models from Microsoft have been used by the Israeli military's program for selecting bombing targets in Gaza. So there was a pro-Palestinian protest by Microsoft employees that interrupted the company's 50th anniversary celebration, which is the latest backlash over the tech industry's work to supply artificial intelligence technology to the Israeli military. Harvard's programs that have been advocating and addressing Palestine have essentially been gutted. Religious news services just reported Harvard Divinity School paused their religion and conflict educational initiative and cut their staff. Hilary Rantisi has been the associate director of a program. She's the sole Palestinian American who was employed at the Divinity School and was told her position's not being renewed. So Harvard just announced last week that they're pausing their religion, conflict, and peace initiative program that's been focused on an Israel-Palestine case study. Harvard has been facing a Trump administration threat to cut $9 billion in contracts and grants for failing to protect Jewish students from anti-Semitism and promoting divisive ideologies over free inquiry. So that's an update from Saturday, April 5th, 2025, day 547. Continue in your efforts. I'll give you an update tomorrow, hopefully from Cairo, on Sunday as Lent continues. May God go before us.